Good evening and welcome to Money Matters. My name is Charlie Huntington and I am the Public Relations Chairperson for Pennsylvania Bio. Pennsylvania Bio is the industry trade organization for the biotech, life science, medical device, and healthcare IT industries within the state of Pennsylvania. Tonight we continue our special series on life science and medical device leaders. Before we get started, I want to remind you that from time to time financial issues relating to life sciences, healthcare, or technology matters or companies may be discussed on the show. These discussions are not and should be not viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since this program is pre-recorded and shown at a later date, please keep in mind that the information may no longer be current. You should always check with your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. Tonight, I'm pleased to have with me as my co-host, Dr. Pat Kelly. Dr. Kelly is a partner at Riverside Law in Wayne, Pennsylvania. He's developed a robust practice advising pharmaceutical, biotech, and scientific instrumentation companies in all facets of patent law. His extensive experience includes working as on-site intellectual property counsel to pharmaceutical and scientific instrumentation companies, conducting validity, due diligence, and freedom to operate studies, formulating and maintaining biotech IP estates, and preparing and prosecuting patent applications related to the life science industry. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you, Charlie.
Please tell us what Riverside Law and you have been up to since the last time you guest hosted the show.
Well, since the last time I was on, we've been steadily growing. We're now up to 11 patent professionals. That includes 7 attorneys, 2 patent agents, and 2 scientific advisors. And we've just moved to a new and larger office to kind of facilitate that growth. So we now have a new office in here in Wayne, Pennsylvania.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
For questions to be answered on a future show, here's how you can do it.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our hosts and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
It's with great pleasure that I now introduce Dr. Mark Schafer. Dr. Schafer has over 30 years of medical industry experience, specifically in ultrasound technologies. He's president and chief operating officer of PhotoSonix Medical, Incorporated, founded in 2014. He's a serial entrepreneur, having founded his first company in the 80s while still in graduate school. He's got a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from MIT, a master's in acoustics from Penn State, and a PhD in biomedical engineering from Drexel. He's currently on the board for the Ultrasonic Industry Association and has served on the Board of Governors for the American Institute of Ultrasound in Medicine. He has also been chairman of their Committee for Technical Standards and is a fellow of that organization. He was recently named a fellow of the Acoustical Society of America for contributions to ultrasound measurement technology. He's also served as adjunct research faculty at Drexel University, and he's the named inventor on 20 U.S. patents. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
You've been interested in ultrasound technology since the 1980s. Can you tell us about where the fascination came from with that? And
Sure, it actually goes all the way back to high school when I was on stage crew and doing the lights and the sound for all the productions there. And then I continued being interested in sound and acoustics, starting at MIT, where in fact I took courses from Dr. Amar Bose of Bose Speakers, as you may be aware of. That was a lot of fun. I then, as my career progressed, I switched and I focused specifically on medical ultrasound because I I really wanted to find a way to take that knowledge of acoustics and apply it directly to helping patients. And I thought that was the best use of the knowledge that I had. So I ended up at Drexel University, started a PhD program there, and worked with their ultrasound group, including professors like Jack Reed and specifically Dr. Peter Lewin, who's still at Drexel now. And working there with Dr. Lewin, we started doing work for companies who were taking medical ultrasound technology through the regulatory process to the FDA. And it turns out the FDA, just as when you take a drug, the FDA wants to know how much drug is in the pill. With ultrasound, they want to know how much ultrasound is going into the patient as a part of the process of approval. So that's the company we founded together, and that company in another form is still in existence, doing that for companies large and small. That gave me contact with everybody from startups to multi-billion-dollar multinationals, really preserving the safety of ultrasound technology for the patients. And I've been fortunate to work with everything from, when you think of ultrasound, you think of look at the baby pictures kind of things. But ultrasound can do just a wide range of things, everything from crushing kidney stones to doing eye surgery for cataracts. In fact, the most popular surgery in America right now is cataract surgery, and that's done ultrasonically, almost exclusively. Things like we can break up blood clots in the brain. We can heal wounds. Just a myriad of things to be done with ultrasound. That's why I find it continually fascinating, and that's why I've really enjoyed my career. And I've started a few companies along the way and done some consulting, so it's really been very rewarding for me.
When you sat down to watch the Super Bowl this year, did you think ultrasound technology would be the funniest commercial?
That really warmed my heart. That really brought it home for me with the Doritos there.
It was very good. It was very good. Tell us about PhotoSonix Medical.
Sure. PhotoSonix is an early stage company founded a couple of years ago with two partners, Dr. Tessie McNeely and Adam Dakin. And what we're doing is we're using that same ultrasound technology combined with light, putting the two technologies together as a way to provide an antibacterial approach to treating a myriad of diseases. And it's what we're really talking about when we talk about these infections, these bacterial infections, are what are called biofilms. And believe it or not, every one of us has a biofilm. It's called a plaque on our teeth. And you wake up in the morning, there's that slimy feeling. That's a biofilm. And that's kind of the most benign one we can think of, but biofilms, in fact, touch 17 million patients a year, $90 billion in healthcare costs, over 500,000 people die from biofilms. The NIH estimates that 80% of all persistent infections, whether it's a wound infection, an implant infection, rhinosinusitis, are related to biofilms. So more patients are touched by that than cancer and heart disease and diabetes combined. So we've really got a technology here combining, again, ultrasound and light to provide a really unique treatment approach to a pretty serious problem.
Charlie mentioned you're the inventor on 20 U.S. patents. How have patents impacted your business?
Well, for PhotoSonix, it's really been a key. We have 3 issued patents right now that I actually started on this work in 2008. That's our filing date, goes back that far. But having issued patents, we were, for instance, raising money. Being able to say that this is something we have, you can look at the patents, you know what we've claimed, was really key in giving us some credibility. In addition to the issued patents, we have another 3 or 4 in the hopper. Got an office action 2 weeks ago. So we're moving forward with that to build a pretty robust estate around the technology.
And what stage are you in your development of the device?
Well, in addition to having the patents, we've now developed prototypes. I should say we've spent the last year working in the laboratory. My partner, Dr. McNeely, 17 years at Merck Pharmaceutical, years at the NIH and at Yale. She has developed the techniques to grow biofilms in the laboratory in a very controlled way, and we've done thousands of experiments using the energies, the blue light and the ultrasound together to see exactly how much you need, what works best, how to apply it. So we've used that laboratory data. Then I've been doing the engineering to develop physical prototypes, and we're right now about to start our clinical trials in humans, which is a really big step for us to really go out and apply this to patients and prove out the technology. And sometimes things that work in the laboratory don't necessarily transfer, and that we're right at that critical stage right now. But we're very feel very good about what our results are going to be.
And how about biofilms being addressed right now? I mean, you're not using drugs, so.
Correct. That's one of the things about biofilms. And let me back up. When bacteria land on a surface in the body or in a pipe or wherever, when they land, they start to communicate with one another, and they change what they do. They, instead of growing, they create a protective coating around themselves. Again, that's that slimy feeling on your teeth. And that protective coating protects them against things like antibiotics. So a bacteria that is kind of free-floating in your bloodstream, let's say, and you take an antibiotic for it, when it forms into a biofilm, it's up to 1,000 times harder to kill with an antibiotic drug. That's what's really been the problem with biofilms. For instance, you may have a friend or an associate who had a hip implant, and then they develop this kind of chronic infection. The only thing they can do is pull it out and replace it. Medicine has really kind of reached a brick wall with a lot of biofilms, where the only thing to be done is surgical removal. And that's because they're so resistant to drug treatment. Our technology, basically the ultrasound stimulates the bacteria and makes them think they're back floating in the bloodstream. That kind of bypasses this biofilm environment they're in. Mm-hmm. Then the blue light acts kind of like a drug and can kill them. So it's that kind of 1-2 punch. The ultrasound stimulates the bacteria, and then the blue light kills them. So it's a completely drug-free approach. And the important thing about that is, again, we may have heard of what's called antibiotic resistance, right, where the bacteria have developed a resistance to many of the frontline antibiotics. Well, that's just, they do that. Evolution has allowed them to do that over the course of the eons. But they have no natural defense against ultrasound. It's not something they find in nature. So we can kind of short-circuit that antibiotic resistance issue and overcome that. So that's what's, again, very exciting about the technology, in that we can now treat bacteria that otherwise would be very, very difficult to treat. We've treated, in fact, in the laboratory, MRSA, which people have heard about as a very, very significant infectious agent. We've killed that in the lab quite successfully. So we're really excited about the capabilities of this basically platform technology.
Okay. When you do get into your testing, can you describe how big of are we talking about an old IBM mainframe, or are we talking about an iPhone, or what size?
The device we're envisioning eventually is going to be something you could have on your bathroom sink and pick up almost like a toothbrush.
Okay.
But it's basically going to be a handheld wand that you'll be able to apply to, let's say, your face, for if it's an infection there, we'll discuss that in a minute, or to a wound. We're also looking at kind of disposable patches that could actually be applied to a wound and left in place for a period of time as an extended care treatment. There are other ways of doing it, depending on exactly what the disease state is. It might be an in-office treatment. We're also looking at things you can take home and use at home as well. So again, it depends on exactly what the application is. But the device we have right now is about a little bit bigger than a laptop.
Okay.
And then connected to a cable to a handheld device.
Okay.
A little bit bigger than your smartphone.
Great.
So you have as you mentioned, a platform technology that's applicable to many markets. What made you choose the acne market as your first target market? Again,
we looked at all these opportunities, and we found that acne looks like the best low-hanging fruit. And in this country, there are about 40 million people who have acne at one time or another. Everything from that pimple before the prom to really severe cases. Of those, 20 million have what we call significant acne, an acne that's bad enough that it will eventually cause scarring. And of those 20 million, 5 million are actively going to the physician saying, what do you have for me? What can we do about this? We're targeting that market space. It's a very readily accessible disease state. In case it's dermal, it's right there on the skin, so it's very easy to get the light and the ultrasound energy into the skin. And it presents a very good market opportunity for us. These patients are suffering. I was shocked at the statistics that 30% of all acne patients have been abused in some way, either verbally or physically abused. 20% have considered suicide at one point because of their acne. Another 30% have felt that they've been held back in either a job or at school because of their physical appearance. So it's really more than just, again, that pimple before the prom kind of issue. It really is a serious disease. It has a very large market. We anticipate that given our distribution channel, we think it's about a $1.2 billion market for our technology all in all.
And can you mention some of the advantages you have with your device over what are currently the acne drugs?
Sure. Every drug or treatment on the market in acne has some side effect. It might be minor, but usually with a minor side effect you also get very little effectiveness. The most effective drug is one called Accutane, which while being very effective is labeled for causing birth defects. Also suicide issues, damage to the liver. So it works, but it's pretty, I hate to use the word nasty, but it's not a pleasant drug to take. Again, the other drugs are antibiotics. 70% of the acne patients out there are antibiotic resistant to most of those drugs. People don't want to take systemic antibiotics these days. So by having a non-drug approach, we can kind of bypass all those issues and get right to the problem, very topically, no systemics, no adverse reactions to the drugs. So we think it's really a game changer for that marketplace.
Got a quick question that would have helped me in elementary school. So I carried the local Today's Post newspaper in the morning, and Peter, whose last name will not be mentioned, he carried the bulletin in the evening, and both of us came down with the chicken pox from Paoli Elementary at the same time. Peter, anxious to get back to his route, scratched all his chicken pox off. Would this help with all types of skin conditions, or this would be basically something, acne is the first thing that you're going to look at, first application?
Chickenpox is a virus.
Yeah. So that Peter still would have been.
Poor Peter is,
Yeah.
sorry,
Okay.
can't do much for him.
Okay.
But again, this targets the bacterial side of things.
Okay.
And we believe it not only be a treatment, but it will also be a preventative. So once you start doing this, it'll also kind of keep the acne at bay.
Got it.
As you go forward. But chickenpox, I'm sorry, they look similar at times, but
Different
source.
animal.
Different
Okay.
animal.
To this financial mind, right? Skin
That's
problem.
okay.
So
That-
I appreciate you
that's
clearing
good.
that up.
We do believe that it have application, for instance, in eczema,
Okay.
which is a topical skin infection relating to bacteria and biofilms, which also has a very large, especially pediatric population, where you don't want to be putting young kids on steroids and antibiotics.
Okay.
Again, that's kind of down the road. We're going to pick one, like any good businessman, pick a target, focus on it, and address it, and not get too kind of lost in the weeds there.
Let's talk about funding. How
Sure.
are you currently funded?
Well, we started out with some grant funding, and of course the founders themselves put some money in. We just recently closed on our seed round. We've got a world-class group of investors, angel investor round, led by Princeton Biopharma out of Michael Wells Group out of Princeton. Closed on about $1.4 million in seed funding.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. That was a big milestone we recently achieved, and that gives us the money to do these clinical trials, develop the prototype, and move forward as we go. That should cover us for about the next 14 months or so, depending on the spend rate with exactly the size of the clinicals. And the idea is that sets the stage then for a Series A round in about a year or so, which we anticipate in the $8-9 million, which would get us then from clinical data and prototype to commercial product release, approvals, all those kinds of things to take to market by 2018 is the plan. So it's a stepwise, and we kind of crossed the first big threshold was the seed round financing. We actually were oversubscribed. We were budgeting for $1 million, we came in at 1.4. So we're very pleased with that.
You have raised money for other companies in the past, correct?
I've worked with a number of other companies raising money. Yes.
How does the environment you face today different from the one you faced in the past?
In a word, it's awful.
Okay.
The medical device area is it's tough for everybody. Medical.
There's lower hanging fruit, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can go to Silicon Valley and do it out of your garage and don't have to go through testing and that's
exactly. When I go to these medical entrepreneur conferences and people present, and there's this 24-year-old and he says, I've developed this app that allows me to monetize the in-house concert experience and then promulgate it through the social media network, and I say, so where's your IP? He says, there's no IP. I just did it in my garage, and then I'll be bought out by some big company at they pay this much per subscriber, and I know that in this many months I'll be worth $500 million, and it's hard to
That can
compete
be
with.
tough.
It can be tough to compete with. Yeah,
Right.
there's plenty of places to put the money. We believe, however, that we've got a very solid plan and a good team that can execute it to really solve an important problem. I mean, not to denigrate your in-house concert experience being monetized through social media or whatever the case may be. We think that actually treating a disease is a bit more socially responsible.
What we've heard on, and what you're describing is exactly what we've heard on the show recently, which is if you're a seasoned entrepreneur, and like you've done this multiple times, it's easier. It's still difficult, but it's easier than the person who is just trying it for the first time, where there's
Right.
not a track record, they've not had some successes. So
It is difficult if you don't have some kind of track record. I don't want to discourage people from trying.
Absolutely not.
If you've got a great idea and you've got a great market and some experience at some level of managing things, then it's worth a shot.
we always say build yourself a seasoned board of directors and leverage that, right?
Absolutely. We've got a good board of directors behind us now that have done it and are providing tremendous advice, and our medical advisory board as well to guide our clinicals.
What about, I know you have a relationship with Ben Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can explain who they are, and also people know the NIH, but you've interfaced with both those organizations. Can you tell us how?
Sure. The NIH, National Institute of Health, is one of the largest providers of money for medical research in the world. And part of their program is devoted specifically to small businesses, called the Small Business Innovation Research, or SBIR program. So it's a set-aside just for small businesses to innovate off-the-wall new technology that's kind of very exciting. Well, we were fortunate enough to get one of those grants in late 2014. In fact, that was the real boost to the company that got us going. That allowed us to do the laboratory work, build some early pieces of equipment to test things out. That was followed on with some money. We got 2 loans from Ben Franklin Technology Partners of Southeast Pennsylvania, which have been a leader for over 20 years. Actually, back in the late 80s, I served on their advisory board, and I also ran a few companies through them and brought companies and technologies to them. They serve a great source of seed capital for early stage ventures in the Delaware Valley. There are 5 centers all over the state, but the one here in the Delaware Valley, centered at the Navy Yard, is really an excellent source of that first money to kind of get you over the hump. We received 2 loans, one for displaced workers. My partner, Tessie McNeely, had been laid off from Merck when they did one of their downsizings. And the other is for technology commercialization. So we received some early loan money that, again, allowed us to do some work, hire Tessie, get her into the project. And then just recently, it was announced we received $250,000 in follow-on funding from them. Again, that's within the last few months the announcement came out. So they are a continuing source. They are a great partner to work with. And they have allocated funds not only for life sciences, but also IT and in the physical sciences. So that's definitely a partnership that is well worth exploring for anybody trying to develop new technology in this area. I can't speak more highly of them and the work they do.
It sounds like they could also be, they and NIH could be important validation points for funding, right?
Absolutely. When we were talking and making presentations scientifically, to be able to say, yes, this is NIH funded, that means it's gone through a scientific review of experts saying this is not, this is not a fly-by-night operation. There's some science here. And then again, when we present to investors to say this is received money from Ben Franklin, people in this area know that yes, it's been scientifically evaluated, the business plan's been evaluated, there's been due diligence, that been vetted fairly well, and that again gives a real boost to the credibility of the company.
I think some people may remember, wasn't it Ben Franklin Technology Partners helped set up the greenhouse, basically tobacco settlement money going to the right places to help start innovation, or I believe they were...
It was either them or BioAdvance was another.
BioAdvance, and then Quaker came out of that.
Right,
and,
exactly. So there are a number of funds that way in this area. I think Ben Franklin started with state money, and now they've got their portfolio money from companies they invested in over the time, over the years.
Right.
They're now basically funded, they're basically self-funded from what I understand, more or less, because of the investments they made early on. And because they do take equity in different, as part of the deal. So they've learned to do this process well and reap benefits from it and then reinvest it. I think that's the main thing. They're reinvesting it in the community here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would success look like for PhotoSonix Medical? How do you envision it proceeding?
Well, again, we have our plan to get this product to market in 2018. We look forward to getting out into the market space. Originally, the product's going to be an at-home device, but originally prescribed through dermatologist in a very controlled way, because we want that doctor kind of imprimatur of technical excellence and clinical effectiveness. But then going on from there, we envision eventually this being an over-the-counter product, and with wide market distribution. Where it goes from there, well, either us or perhaps an acquirer who's got an over-the-counter presence will be the right way to eventually get it there.
That's great. That's great. We have a minute or so left. You've obviously had friends who may have been laid off from the pharmaceutical industry,
Yes.
probably asking, I see what you do, Mark. I'm envious of it. How do you manage their expectations for what sort of that next chapter might look like? Do you encourage them to do it, and if so, with what parameters?
I think that's a great question. In fact, my partner, Tessie McNeely, was in exactly that situation, and we received funding from Ben Franklin, where they had a program specifically to help that area and
New
allow
entrepreneurs.
new entrepreneurs and companies hiring these people out of the pharmaceutical business when it downsized. I think there's a specific database of those employees that's accessible. I think anyone who's in that position should really look inside. Is entrepreneurship really in their blood? Because it has to be. It takes a lot to be an entrepreneur. I tell people it's like you get on the biggest roller coaster you can think of, but you don't put the safety bar down. I mean, there are ups and downs and lots of sideways.
You're signing up for a lifestyle, aren't you?
Exactly, and your family's signing up for the lifestyle as well. Nights and weekends, and that was going to be our vacation, but this money's going somewhere else. But if a person has that kind of inkling, network. There are plenty of programs in this area, all over Philadelphia. We're working at a space called Plexus downtown, which is a new med tech device center, kind of a shared space entrepreneurial center. There are other ones down in Philly as well, and that's how I kind of started going to these meetings, many of which are for free, most of which are for free. Rub elbows, tell your story, get involved. Pennsylvania Bio hosts things like this on a regular basis that will allow you to kind of get your feet wet and understand what might be out there for you.
We've got enough material to do another show, and I hope at some point you'll come back and make that happen.
It'd be a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Schafer. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Great co-host. Want to remind our viewers that Money Matters is now available as an audio podcast on iTunes and Stitcher Radio as Money Matters, the podcast for mobile devices. The video is available on our YouTube channel as well as our website. And finally, Nick Izzy is a CPA. He will be our next guest, and he is from Izzy and Associates, and he'll cover tax planning. As always, your money matters, and we thank you for spending time with us this evening. Good night.